end Syrian civil war in years, Syrian rebels have taken considerable ground, including the most important city of Aleppo. Now, Syrian rebels standing atop abandoned government tanks on Aleppo's outskirts have seized territory once firmly under President Bashar al-Assad's control. And according to sources, hundreds of Iran-backed Iraqi fighters crossed into Syria to help the government fight rebels who seized Aleppo last week. But Lebanon's Hezbollah has no plans for now to join them. And Iran's regional militia, coupled with Russia's air power, were in fact and are instrumental in reversing the tide of Syrian civil war. However, renewed fighting has reopened international fault lines in a conflict that has largely been stabilized since 2020. And Turkey and Iran on the opposing sides of the conflict traded barbs while Turkey's foreign minister urged reconciliation. Iran's envoy blamed the violence on the US and the Zionist interference. In Idlib, continuous airstrikes are allegedly being carried out by Russia and Syrian jets. The strikes coincide with reports of discussion between the US and the UAE of lifting sanctions against Assad if he distances himself from Iran.
Nothing has changed with respect to our policy. Assad is a brutal dictator with blood on his hands, the blood of innocent civilians inside Syria, blood of his own people on his hands. Ultimately, what we want to see is a political process forward where the Syrian people get to determine who their leaders are. As I said, United Nations Security Council Resolution 2254 called for such a process. The Syrian government has never participated in that process. We continue to call on them to do so. We continue to call on all countries to use their influence to push forward that kind of political process that would lead to a path forward for the Syrian people, where the regime engages with opposition groups. We also believe it would be helpful if Russia and Iran stopped their destabilizing influence inside Syria. We have seen them continue to destabilize the situation going back more than a decade now, continue to play a role that is unhelpful not just to the Syrian people but to the broader region.
Analysts suggest that Assad's reliance on Iranian support for a counter-offensive could complicate efforts to weaken his ties to Tehran. The US has reiterated its call for a political process to end Syria's prolonged civil war as rebel forces consolidate gains in Aleppo.
This is not a new happening. Actually, 2019, they reached an agreement in Astana between Iran, Syria, Russia, and Turkey that there will be a truce, there will be no attack. But because of the ongoing war on Gaza and then followed up in Lebanon, Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, threatened the Syrian president in 26th of November, and he told him that it will be, he's playing with fire. And then immediately there was a meeting between the intelligence of Turkey and Israel, and the attack was launched. So if you can, while I'm watching your report, I could see when the statue was falling, there was an Uzbek voice. It was not even a Syrian. That's a clear indication that these are a terrorist organization led by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which used to be an ISIS and then changed its clothes to go to Al-Qaeda, and now he changed it to dress up as a moderate, as the American wanted to show, because 28 of these groups active in Idlib Kabir are supported by the United States. And the Los Angeles Times carried an article and the headline that rebels supported by militia supported by the Pentagon are fighting the militia supported by the CIA. So you can imagine what's going on in Syria. It has nothing to do with the rebels. There's simply an opposition created by the United States for deafening the Syrian government, which they failed since 2011.